Our food systems today face major challenges.
Hello, just testing that this is working. If you could take your seats, this is free seating. We're going to be starting in just a minute or two. That would be great. Thank you. Good afternoon, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the launch of the Agroecology Coalition's new strategy for the next 6 years. Welcome also to the guests who are joining us online, which includes Agroecology Coalition's partners from around the world, as well as journalists. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on wherever you're logging in from. Now, my name is Finn, and I'm a journalist specializing in food systems and climate change, and I'm delighted to be facilitating this event today. Now, before we start, let me just go through some brief housekeeping rules. Now, this event is mainly in English, but we do have simultaneous translation in French and Spanish. See these little earpieces? If you need translation, just make sure they're in your ear. We're also live streaming this event through the Agroecology Coalition's YouTube channel. Now, the event is organized into 3 broad parts. First, we're going to have a welcome remarks as well as the presentation of the strategy. Now, this is going to be followed by 2 roundtable discussions. The first one is with the Rome-based UN agencies as well as our friends from the CG systems. And then the second discussion features a few coalition member countries through their permanent representatives and embassies in Rome. We will then have a brief closing remarks. Now, the objective of today's event are twofold. First, we're very excited to be launching the Agroecology Coalition strategy for 2024-2030. We're also going to be discussing efforts by the Rome-based agencies and countries around advancing the food systems transformation through agroecology. Now, before we go further, let me first invite Dr. Alvaro Lario, President of IFAD, for his welcome remarks.
Thank you very much, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Let me first start welcoming all the members of the Agroecology Coalition, those of like who us believe in the farming through agroecology as a wiser way of farming, and also those who are more skeptical, who might be joining us also online. Today's launch is a chance to examine mounting evidence of the transformative benefits of agroecology to farmers, communities, and the environment. For IFAD, of course, the particular emphasis is on our focus on small-scale farmers in low and middle-income countries. For many years, intensive farming has helped feed the world. It has been seen as a quite straightforward proposal. Industrial monoculture approaches to food production were seen as the only solution to a growing population. But there has been 2 major problems with that logic. Firstly, the long-term intensive farming has gravely damaged our natural resources and our ecosystems. For example, last year's State of the World's Food and Agriculture report calculated the hidden cost of agri-food systems. It estimated the financial consequences of greenhouse and nitrogen emissions, water use, land use change, unhealthy dietary patterns, undernourishment, as well as poverty. And the number amounts to 10 trillion per year, 10% of the global GDP. The second problem is that intensive farming has not even made nutritious food universally accessible or affordable. More than 1 in 3 of us cannot afford a healthy, diversified diet. And this is clearly unsustainable for the planet and for the people. The good news, and we'll see more today, is that it doesn't have to be this way. With 6 years to reach the Sustainable Development Goals, we need to find opportunities, and today is one of those. How can we really make the efforts to end poverty and hunger and to do it in a sustainable way? If we follow the lead of the Agroecology Coalition, we can develop farming systems that are more productive and in balance with the natural world. We can feed ourselves and all people while cohabiting with our environment. Many of you know that small-scale farmers who work land up to 5 hectares produce around half of our food on less than 17% of the world's farmland. And these farmers need to make a profit so that they can manage their land sustainably, invest in their farms, and feed and educate their children. Research shows us that agroecology practices can result in higher productivity and revenues, and that all the socioeconomic benefits can also follow. This can improve both food security and nutrition. And this is just not words from our side, from IFAD. We believe firmly in this approach. 60% of IFAD-supported projects completed between 2018 and 2023 implemented agroecological practices at the level of the farm, landscape, market, or policy. Time after time, these projects demonstrated the benefits: economic, environmental, nutritional, as well as social, and often many of all of them above. In the Philippines, we supported indigenous peoples to switch their slash and burn plots to growing organic vegetables, and this ensured diversified, healthy, and nutritious diets while contributing to conserving biodiversity. Now they can also produce commands with premium prices. In eastern Brazil, a program of seed guardians reproduced many drought-tolerant local crop varieties. By selling these seeds to family farmers, they strengthen food security and nutrition in semi-arid areas of Bahia that actually I visited last year. The European Union and Belgium are giving also additional funding to IFAD for our work on agroecology. With our partners, including local communities and farmers themselves, we are striving to improve access to solutions that are adapted to small-scale agroecology systems. Some are mechanical, others are digital, others are biological. And to help foster thriving and sustainable local economies, we're also pioneering ways of connecting agroecology producers with consumers. Ladies and gentlemen, we urgently need to transform food production around the world. Agroecology has incredible potential to help, but the task is huge and far beyond the means of any single organization or government. That's why we offer our full support to the Agroecology Coalition strategy, which offers a comprehensive solution to foster resilience, sustainability, and prosperity for generations to come. To the coalitions and to all of you members, thank you for showing us the way. For the sake of our children and our planet, I hope we can learn from you and take it further. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Lario, for your comments. I realize you have a very busy schedule, and you have to leave now, but we really appreciate your continued support for the Agroecology Coalition, as well as for setting the scene about the challenges that we face, and hopefully agroecology can help bridge some of that gap.
Thank you very much. I'll wait for the speech of the co-chair and then I'll leave. Thank you very much.
Okay, perfect. Now, before the speech of the co-chair, we actually have a short video message from the FAO Deputy Director General, Maurizio Martina. He couldn't be with us today, but he also has these encouraging words to say.
It's a great pleasure to deliver these remarks on the occasion of the launch of the Agroecology Coalition's Strategy 2024-2030. The launch of the Coalition's strategy is very timely and of high relevance in view of the recent agreement arising from the United Nations Food Systems Summit +2 to achieve the sustainable food system and accelerate the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. The Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, in its latest flagship report on the state of food and agriculture, identified that our current agri-food systems impose huge hidden costs on our health, environment, and society, equivalent to at least $10 trillion a year. Agroecology is an essential solution for the transformation of food systems towards healthy, resilient, equitable, and sustainable systems. Since 2014, FAO has opened a neutral space of dialogue on agroecology to consolidate evidence and to understand the key principle and condition to bring it to scale. This led to the launch of the Agroecology Knowledge Hub, the Skin Up Agroecology Initiative with UN partners, and the development of the 10 elements of agroecology approved by the FAO Council and endorsed internationally as a framework to redesign food systems. FAO commits its support to implementation of country pathways for the food system transformation through agroecology. Finally, I would like to thank you all for your attention, your passion, and wish you an extremely fruitful and very successful event. Thank you so much.
We thank Mr. Martina for his comments. May I now invite the co-chair of the Agroecology Coalition, Madeleine Kaufmann, for her remarks.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and as co-chair of the Agroecology Coalition, I'm pleased to welcome you all to today's event. And I would like to start to thank IFAD for hosting us today, and to you, Dr. Alvaro Lario, for your opening remarks and your valuable presence and also support. Thank you very much. Finally, after a year of hard work and many conversations, we are launching the Agroecology Coalition Strategy 2024-2030. The strategy will serve as a guide to navigate our paths in terms of, first, facilitating the co-creation and exchange of knowledge on agroecology, an aspect that I personally value highly, as peer-to-peer learning between countries, for example, on developing agroecological policies is of utmost importance. Then second, promoting increased investments in agroecology. Third, amplifying supportive policies. Fourth, promoting market pathways. And then, of course, also building our respective capacities as members of the coalition. We are almost 300 up to now. After years of multi-stakeholder advocacy efforts in key policy spaces, including the Committee on World Food Security, the High-Level Political Forum, the United Nations Environmental Assembly, the Rio Conventions, and others, the critical role of food systems has finally been registered, and the discourse is shifting from production to the entire food systems and its activities. And in 2021, you are all aware of this, the United Nations Food Systems Summit built momentum for this focused attention on the need for concerted action to rethink food system. The coalition has set up in this context to provide a mechanism for countries and organizations to collaborate on food systems transformation through agroecology. This has happened with the support of so many stakeholders from civil society, farmers groups, also indigenous peoples, research, philanthropy, international organizations, and also the Rome-based agencies represented here today, as well as various national governments, many of which are part of the group of friends of agroecology that just met this afternoon, and we would like to thank them all. A permanent secretariat was established and became fully operational in early 2023. The team quickly rolled up their sleeves, engaged with a wide range of actors to raise the agroecology flag, and that while developing the Agroecology Coalition strategy we are launching today. Today, the coalition has established itself as an important voice for agroecology in multiple spaces, including high-level policy dialogues. Its work and this strategy aim to amplify voices that need to be heard and heeded more widely. So thank you for your presence, for supporting the implementation of the strategy, and for your support in advancing the agroecology agenda in our collective efforts to transform food systems. And in conclusion, I would like to emphasize that at the time when it is difficult to find consensus and shared visions sometimes for the future of our food systems, this coalition has the beauty of bringing together continents and a wide range of stakeholders. This is the coalition that you have signed up for and that you helped to emerge. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madeleine. Thank you again, and Dr. Lario. Now, I think we've heard from our speakers from both IFAD and FAO, and we've I think, reached a stage where we all agree that the current food systems we have are just not fit for purpose. They're not sustainable, they're not healthy, and they're not equitable, right? And they are coming under extreme pressure from erratic weather patterns. Many parts of Europe had a very, very wet spring. Others, severe droughts. India is undergoing an extreme heat wave. The Horn of Africa had a multi-year drought. Well, agroecology is about building food systems that are equitable, resilient, green, and nutritious. And we're soon going to hear from Oliveros, who is the coordinator of the Agroecology Coalition, about the new strategy for the next 6 years from 2024 to 2030 on how we're going to achieve such a food system. But first, we're going to watch a short video.
Our food systems today face major challenges. They are responsible for 1/3 of global greenhouse gas emissions. They are degrading 1/3 of all soil on Earth and are massively contributing to biodiversity loss and water scarcity. Chemical-intensive monocultures also fail to provide adequate livelihoods. They contribute to the displacement of communities, social inequalities, and fail to deliver adequate nutrition for all. Today's prevailing farming model is not fit for purpose, but change is coming. We can unite and transform our food systems towards social and environmental sustainability. Agroecology, working with nature, not against it, is already providing solutions, and it is increasingly backed by scientists, social movements, farmers, and governments. They have come together in a coalition with the mission to accelerate the transformation of food systems through agroecology. Since its launch in 2021, the coalition now brings together around 300 diverse members, both governments and organizations, and that number keeps growing. Our work is anchored on a set of agroecological elements and principles of promoting healthy environments and healthy people, strengthening resilience, and securing social equity and responsibility. Our 5 objectives seek to grow agroecology by building exchange of knowledge, increased investments, policy support, markets development, and helping our members to grow stronger. The coalition is organized through working groups and supported by a lean secretariat. It is guided by a diverse steering committee, drawn from different regions and stakeholders. Agroecology has a bright future. Join us in this journey towards more sustainable, resilient, inclusive, equitable, healthy, and flourishing food systems.
Greetings, everyone, and we are delighted to have you all today, both in person and online. Can you see the screen? All right, fantastic. Well, today is the culmination of a year-long strategy development process. After a series of consultations, conversations, and yes, negotiations, we are gathered together today for this launch. This slide gives you an outline of the strategy. The coalition was set up during a tumultuous time of polycrisis. It was also during that moment when we have participated in the UN Food Systems Summit process, which elevated the food systems discourse globally. 2 years since its inception, the Agroecology Coalition is witnessing its emergence and continued growth and expansion, as evidenced by the diversity and number of members joining us each week. We are at this point in time where we see a growing space for agroecology, about food systems taking center stage, about the need to think through transformation and think more holistically and multidimensionally, because that's the only way to go. We are also witnessing that agroecology funding is on the rise, but much greater investment needs to be done for it to realize its full potential. We also know that finance needs to be organized and to be able to address also the competing agricultural models. We are also in this moment where we are underutilizing market opportunities, but at the same time, there's a growing recognition of the catalytic role of frontline food systems actors and a growing emphasis of national policies worldwide in the North as it is in the South. Our vision as a coalition is this: Food systems are transformed through agroecology to be sustainable, resilient, inclusive, equitable, healthy, and flourish economically. Our mission is this: to accelerate the transformation of food systems through agroecology by facilitating collective actions and empowering members with capacities needed to drive positive change at all levels. At all levels. Transformative change comes from building and upscaling innovative farm and food systems models based on agroecological principles. This involves challenging prevailing mindsets and discourses that see nature and food primarily as commodities rather than recognizing their multiple values, and so generating intercultural discourse and co-created knowledge in society. And this involves working with multiple entities, through governments at all levels, local to national, as well as with international agencies to promote enabling environments. With the private sector, towards more investment in agroecology, pushing for corporate accountability and responsibility. With farmers and food producers, as well as consumers, supporting and recognizing their rights and their own knowledge systems. And strengthening food systems actors, including family farmers, fisher folks, pastoralists, indigenous peoples, local food entrepreneurs, private sectors, MSE, SMEs, women, and youth. This is where the coalition members are actively engaged with, pursuing these transformative pathways. The coalition is working to add value to our members' efforts by driving change in 4 key areas: knowledge, investments, policies, and markets, while recognizing that these interact to generate whole system transformation in particular context. The coalition, your coalition, is a place to exchange with peers, to learn, to network, and to stand together for transformative change. It elevates and adds energy, knowledge, and reach to members' initiatives, and increases the impact of collective actions and voices in a collective effort to reach the vision we all want to see. As a coalition, we play different roles. We can lead in uniting members in collective action. We can facilitate bringing together actors through convenings, or broker and share knowledge and mobilize different experience. But we can also be a supporter, being the cheerleader of the members who are working on the ground all the time. The year-long process resulted in articulation of 5 strategic objectives: to facilitate the co-creation and exchange of knowledge, fostering increased investments in agroecology, advocating for and amplifying policies that are supportive of agroecology, supporting and promoting market pathways, and supporting and engaging and strengthening our member support base. The strategy is articulated in a set of objectives and a set of expected outcomes and a number of example action areas that can be put forward. Within 6 years in the area of knowledge exchange, the coalition has supported transformative, systemic, interdisciplinary co-creation of knowledge. We have facilitated knowledge and peer-to-peer learning initiatives to strengthen members' capacities. We have promoted and mobilized knowledge and evidence to influence policies, research, investments, and markets towards agroecology. Here you would see, and I won't talk to them one by one, a range of action areas that can be carried out to make sure this happens. In the area of increasing investments, within 6 years, the coalition has developed and disseminated a strong case for increased investments in agroecology, has established regular convening of donors and investors regarding investment needs and opportunities in agroecology, and has tracked and provided a comprehensive picture of agroecology investments in volume and quality. Again, here, a set of activities that is needed to make sure that we reach and achieve our expected outcomes. Advocating and amplifying policies for agroecology. Within 6 years, the coalition has coordinated joint actions and exchanges with members and allies, successfully integrating agroecology from national to global processes, such as the Rio Conventions, furnishing members with tools to strengthen advocacy, specifically with intergovernmental platforms, documented increased uptake and impacts of agroecology in terms of policies in different mechanisms that already exist, from NDCs to NBSAPs, LDNs, NAPs, and National Food Systems Transformation Pathways, and has supported or participated in peer-to-peer exchanges and capacity building on advocacy and policy development, particularly of local actors in support of promising national regional policy initiatives. Again, here you have a set of activities that are needed to make sure these happen. Supporting and promoting market pathways for agroecology. Within 6 years, the coalition has convened actors working for entrepreneurship, value chains, and territorial market development, has contributed to shifting the narrative on the economic viability of agroecology, and businesses aligned with the principles and elements of agroecology, and has collated and disseminated best practices and lessons in creating resilient market pathways and inclusive business models. Of course, the coalition is only as strong as its weakest members. So what we want to do is within the next 6 years, we have fostered membership growth and active engagement, particularly of governments, and underrepresented groups and regions, which are often absent in conversations like this. The coalition has supported advocacy, peer-to-peer exchanges, and capacity building among members, so they could be more influential at national, regional, and global conversations and policymaking. Again, a set of activities that will allow for meaningful membership engagement between now and in the next 6 years. Communication is a key element of the strategy of the coalition. It is all about conveying the importance of agroecology in transforming our food systems to multiple audiences, in communicating the holistic benefits of agroecology, in addressing a wide range of challenges, in improving audience understanding of agroecological solutions and potentials, and keeping members engaged and our activities elevated, because we won't be there without the members doing the things on the ground. Our multi-stakeholder steering committee guides our work and that of the 6 working groups where members of the coalition participate and interact. We will be putting a monitoring and learning framework that allows us to capture the emerging outcomes as a result of implementing the various actions identified, taking into account both internal and external audience, and helping the coalition learn and evolve, and also a framework that will help us manage risks. And of course, this strategy is translated into annual implementation plan, both of the Secretariat and of the different working groups. The moment for agroecology has arrived, and we are living it. How and what we do, make the most out of it, is our challenge. Our common future depends on the future of our commons. It is our collective responsibility to make sure that we are moving towards that direction, and we all need your help and support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Oliver, for essentially, distilling down 6 years of strategy into 10 minutes of presentation. I'm sure that was not easy. I'm sure all of you have questions. For those who are here in person, you can find him later during the cocktail and, grill him on the finer details that you didn't get during the 10-minute presentation. Thank you again, Oliver.
Thank you.
We're now going to start the first of our very quick rapid fire roundtable discussions, and I'd like to invite the speakers to come and join me here on the seats. We have Corinna Hawks, Director of Agri-Food Systems Division at the FAO. We have Joe Puri, who is the Associate Vice President of IFAD. Carmen Burbano, Director of the Schools Meal Coalition at the WFP, and last but definitely not the least, Juan Restrepo, Director General of the Alliance of Bioversity-CIAT. And I know that all of our speakers are experts in their field with decades of experience, but I have an impossible request. I would ask you to limit your answers to a maximum of 3 minutes, if you can. I'm going to start first with Corinna. Corinna, so it's been 10 years since the FAO first held its symposium on agroecology, and 5 years since I think FAO adopted or approved the 10 elements of agroecology, which its member states endorsed. I understand that you are relatively new to the FAO, but you've also been tasked with sort of leading the agri-food systems work there. So as a relatively new director, can you tell us how you see FAO using agroecology as part of its agri-food systems going forward?
Sure. Thank you very much for the question, and it's very nice to be here, and congratulations for this launch. If I can put my response to that question in the broader context briefly of the work that we're trying to do to catalyze a more systems holistic approach to agri-food systems transformation within FAO and externally. And that we know there is so much talk these days, which is good, about agri-food systems transformation, food systems transformation. But we also know we're not really seeing the change, the transformative change that we need in order to deliver on outcomes. We're seeing action which has unintended consequences. We're seeing action that has some impact, but not so much, is rather limited. And we have action which has good impact, and then it's not sustained, or it's not at scale. And so the question that we have in our work on agri-food systems is, how can we actually get the implementation of action? How can we actually get this done on the ground? That's the agenda now. And so as part of that, we've been exploring, well, what does that look like? And it's very evident when you look at the evidence that one of the reasons we're not seeing this transformative change, I mean, it's not seeing sufficient change on the ground, despite actually an enormous amount of action that is taking place, albeit insufficient, there's still a lot going on, is the lack of recognition of the interconnections in food systems. And that lack of recognition and consideration in the actions that we're taking is what is leading to the unintended consequences, is what is leading to the fact that you start to try and make some change and it gets blocked by another change that you'll need to make that you're not making, and by the fact that you're not building resilient systems, which means that the change just fizzles out. So what we're trying to do is to articulate and encourage action that takes a systems approach. And as one of the ways that we're doing that is to gather examples of approaches which do take a systems approach, and agroecology is an important example. So we will be considering in our agri-food systems work, considering agroecology as one way of taking a systems approach to transformative change in agri-food systems, along with other approaches like One House and circular economy. And I would argue, I know Carmen is here, school meal programs, because what these approaches do is that they hit multiple targets. They increase resilience, they improve nutrition, they support livelihoods. They are approaches which are in particular places, in particular spaces that hit multiple targets. And that's one way of taking a systems approach. And it's an approach that has the potential to link to higher levels of the system and actually be transformative at higher scale. So that's how we will be seeing agroecology. We're collating examples of systems approach at the moment, which will be collating and putting out there. So I look forward to working with my agroecology colleagues at headquarters and others in order to make sure that we're framing it in that way. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Corinna. So systems approach, linking them all together, getting examples. I'm going to now turn to Joe. Joe, just a few years ago, right, agroecology constituted a really small proportion of ODA, the Overseas Development Assistance. And even then, out of the small amount of ODA, the proportion of agroecology was tiny. Now, we have good news in that the overall funding for agroecology is on the rise, and that includes from donors like the European Commission and IFAD itself. Now, do you see this, this momentum, this trend of funding increase continuing and improving? And do you also have any suggestions or advice on how to maintain that momentum?
Thank you, Thinley. So let me start with 3 numbers, 4, 10, and 44. What's 4? 4 is nature was ranked as the number 4th biggest risk by the World Economic Forum in a report that came out last year. What's 10? 10 trillion is the cost of our current agri-food systems. And that's the cost that we are having to bear with respect to nature, biodiversity, climate, land degradation, and other intangibles. And what's 44? That's the amount of investment that we require for agroecology. And I think you heard that number earlier. So for me, and I think for IFAD, and this is the reason for our very strong support for the coalition, and which will continue, has been recognizing that agroecology really represents a win-win-win solution. If we are able to deal with some of the, and I would call them beginning challenges. IFAD, in its own work, last year we did a review of our portfolio, and we found that more than 60% of our portfolio that had closed over a period of 3 years by 2021 had agroecological components in them, right? And IFAD is a financial institution, it's a lending organization, and for that was a pleasant surprise. But I think it also underscored the fact that there is a huge commitment from governments to really be looking at agroecology as a really important solution for many of the challenges that we are witnessing in rural areas today, and for smallholder farmers. Amongst them being that, yes, we've got to ensure that lands are not getting degraded, that we are not seeing depleted soils, that we are truly building alternate development pathways that are also benefit sharing. And benefit sharing, participation, inclusivity are all key elements and principles of agroecology as well, other than, of course, of ensuring that you've got constant around the year coverage, you are multiple cropping, you are ensuring that there is empowerment of women. So all of these principles are really key. But I think the key thing is recognizing that economically it's feasible. And with market access also as a key principle of agroecological practices, it is possible for us to show that, yes, there is a good internal rate of return of investments that are done, which are agroecology focused. So what does that mean for a lending organization such as IFAD, right? We've got to build the building blocks of such loans that are predicated on agroecology. It means that we've got to build into our boring but really important and critical systems, this openness to thinking about what is the economic and financial analysis that underscores and underlies every investment that is going forward, focusing on agroecology. So the economic and financial analysis tool is something that we've been piloting with our investments in Bolivia, in Senegal, and several other countries. It's only after we're able to look at that, yes, our economists are then able to say that, yes, there is a legitimate internal rate of return that is making this investment viable. Now, that means that we are able to demonstrate that not just to ourselves internally, but we are also able to demonstrate that to other donors and potential partners. The second part is being able to take on risk. Right? So in every investment, yes, we are working in rural areas. We are working in areas where the KYC, the Know Your Customer rules are very different from, say, developed markets. But with agroecology and the fact that we are working through farmers' organizations, the fact that we are working through civil society organizations, we are able to leverage that knowledge and the knowledge of the participants of the overall process and agroecological practices, and really integrate that into our planning. And the fact that IFAD works with these organizations is really key for us. And then I think the last point is really recognizing that we've got to demonstrate the investment case to our donors. And I think we are doing that because we are able to take on, for example, agroecology directed investments in the small but very critical part of our overall portfolio, which is grant-driven. So while we can make loans to the governments that we service as our clients, it is really important for us to also learn and do the initial heavy lifting with respect to understanding what is the innovation challenge and what is the scaling up challenge, which is really critical for agroecology, because we know, for example, that agroecological practices also require labor, which is very different, require market access, which is very different. So that risk taking also becomes very much possible because of the grant initiatives that we have, for example, like ASAP. Adaptation for Smallholder Farmers Program. So I think if we can bring together truly all of those elements of risk sharing and risk integration, of demonstrating success and a positive internal rate of return, and truly recognizing that that we have platforms that can also help to benefit share and really target our smallholder farmers, we've got a win-win-win solution. Thanks.
Great. Thank you very much for that very concise and precise advice. Now I'm going to turn to talk about school meals because they have the potential, right? Great potential to transform rural economies through multiple ways. You can support local farmers, you can provide jobs, and of course, you can also improve livelihoods. Now, Carmen, you're the coordinator of the School Meals Coalition, which the WFP is hosting. Can you perhaps tell us about the prospects that you see of having more agroecologically produced food as part of the school meal programs, and any, advice or suggestions you might also have on, what can we done to actually realize that potential?
Yeah, thanks. Congratulations to the Agroecology Coalition for the launch of the strategy. It's very exciting to see how far you've come. I want to make sure that my presence here is understood with the right hat. So I'm the director of the Secretariat of the School Meals Coalition, which is directed and owned by governments. So 97 governments are members of the coalition. It's led by France, Finland, and Brazil. So it's a distinction that's important because what we're talking about with school meals programs is massive investments in these policies by governments that provide a policy lever for us to connect to this discussion today, which is if governments are investing so much money, and it's in the order of about $50 billion every year in the demand of food, about 80% of public procurement of food goes through school meals programs. So this is a really important demand of food. And as Corinna mentioned, it has connections to healthy diets. It has connections to all kinds of parts of the food system that we're discussing. The part that's pertinent to the discussion today is really how these programs can be localized and can be connected to local value chains through local purchase. And where we've seen governments through the coalition and discussions in the coalition really galvanize, and a lot of the momentum that is powering the coalition is this promise of turning and using these policy levers that are at the hands of governments. They can make decisions with this demand that they're putting together to, for example, buy locally, make sure that a certain percentage of this food is procured from smallholder farmers and other things. So there's a kind of a really important demand-based platform that can be used to catalyze some of these changes that we're talking about today. What we've seen inside the coalition is that this is not just about talking about a potential. Over the last 3 years, we've seen governments really step up with some robust commitments that could form the springboard for a lot of action moving forward. So, for example, in Sri Lanka, when the government joined the coalition, they committed to ensuring the scale up of the national school meals program, but 70% of that food to be purchased by smallholder farmers. So these commitments and these kind of policy decisions that governments are making can give us a window, a very important window of opportunity of saying, okay, so how do we get them there? What kind of support do they need to actually make those changes? This is not just a low-income discussion in the coalition. France, for example, has committed to ensuring that 50% of the food for the national school meals program in France comes from local farming and 20% of those from organic farming. So again, a lot of conversations in Europe and in other countries related to school meals in this way are, for us, a really important catalyst for this conversation. So that's where we are. We're seeing a lot of policy movement. We're seeing a lot of interest from governments. But obviously, the challenges remain. And realizing the potential of these programs at the local level is where we're seeing a lot of the bottlenecks right now. The connection between the investments that are made on the education side, in many cases, these programs are run through the ministries of education. Having a Ministry of Education talk to a Ministry of Agriculture is really complicated. Aligning incentives so that the investment is connected at the local level is something that is a challenge. It's a multi-sectoral challenge that governments all around the world are dealing with, both at the national level, but most importantly at the local level, municipalities. That level of where those investments really need to connect is where we're seeing how can we support them to align those incentives better. So that side of things, and as we were mentioning, there is a lot of investment that needs to happen through the agriculture side so that the demand can meet that investment, which is not always very easy. And then we're looking forward to obviously the partnership with FAO, with IFAD and others, including CGIAR and CIAT, on the issue of building the evidence for what works and what doesn't work in particular contexts. We're looking at very diverse countries. We're looking at, even within a country, a lot of different zones, a lot of different agroecological zones. And so certain solutions for the sustainability of these programs may work in one part of the country and they don't work in another. So there's a lot of thinking through very, very specifically about how these value chains are set up, what works in which contexts, building that evidence base and supporting countries to move forward. But certainly the promise is there. The scale is massive. I mean, you know, Brazil feeds more than 40 million children a day. India, 100 million children. So these are enormous potential platforms for this agenda that you're talking to today. So we're very much looking forward to connecting with this coalition, sister coalition. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for that, Carmen. And, you know, it's great to hear how countries are already taking it up and putting it in their policies, right? But the challenges that I think you mentioned are also pretty big to overcome, and hopefully with coalitions all working together with the UN agencies, with the CG system, you know, we can move the needle a little bit. Now, speaking of evidence, you're talking about it. It's a good segue to the next speaker, Juan Lucas. So one of the things that we hear quite often from critics of agroecology is that there isn't enough evidence, you know, that evidence is lacking in terms of the performance of agroecological practices. Do you think that that criticism is still justified, or is it more of an excuse, you know, that is being used not to adopt or foster agroecological practices? Could you tell us about some of the scientific evidence, you know, what it tells about agroecological practices, and also perhaps what some of the CG centers are doing in terms of this?
Sure. Great to be here. Let me start also by congratulating the coalition on the strategy. It's very sharp, and I really hope that it can leverage a lot of change in favor of food transitions through agroecological approaches. In terms of evidence, and as Joe, let me start with some numbers as well. If in the period of in the last 20 years, we see a growing number of references in articles and book chapters on agroecology. And 66% of that evidence is from in the last 6-7 years. So that means that there is a great trend in terms of more and more work related to research around agroecology. However, if you look at what that is about, it's still a lot about the farming systems around agroecology, but not enough on the socioeconomical, political dimensions, the human center-based approach that is such an important principle in agroecology. So that needs some balance, and this is why as CGIAR, and this is also, I think, fantastic news, CGIAR with an initiative at the institutional system level on agroecology transition is something that was never even thought about. It was kind of out of scope historically. And now it's not only a very strong initiative in our portfolio, but one that gets a lot of support from funders. There is growth, and it's something that we're bringing into the new programming of the system. And basically that initiative is precisely dedicated to investigate those specificities of agroecology across the world and the economic, social, and political barriers, as well as enablers to facilitate these approaches. And for us, it's very important because we're not only doing research about agroecology, we also do research on sustainable intensification and other approaches. It's how do we understand trade-offs, and in what specific local conditions, context are these agroecological approaches best suited for food systems transformation at that level? Could be local or or global. So that gives us a quite an interesting positioning in the research environment, because we don't only work on research on agroecology, but we also work on other types of conventional research. So what do we foresee and do we want going forward? First, we need to accelerate research. We need a lot more research. There is a lot of catching up that we still need to do. And one of the objectives of our initiative is trying to develop an assessment framework that precisely helps how to measure not only the agronomic, but the economic, environmental, and social performance of farming systems at different stages of the agroecological transition. That's kind of our priority and focus at the moment. I would say that it's going to be as important to make sure that some dogmatic approaches in terms of agroecology are thought a bit differently, because we have amazing results from conventional research that can be very easily brought into agroecological spaces. We found that these beautiful natural brachiarias, forages, are being able to store carbon at 2 meters deep and feed animals and also become carbon, be efficient in carbon capture. Let's bring that knowledge, that's new knowledge, into those systems. So how do we make sure we connect the conventional and the fully, integral agroecological approaches? That's going to be important. And maybe to finalize, because I only have 3 minutes, I'm going to skip a couple of ideas, but I think, and listening to my colleagues, we need to keep looking at what are the investments and incentives to speed up the agroecological transition. So it's not only governments. Governments are going to be critical, but private sectors, is the financial mechanisms of the transition. Some of the changes required into agroecological transitions require big investments with amazing returns, but that do not normally fit the financial structures that are available. That's going to be critical. Public procurement programs, not only school meals, but school meals can be an amazing, or is being an amazing driver as well. And just to finalize, we need to understand things that are working, how do we scale them up? So we've been super successful, not only the Alliance, but other organizations, in supporting community seed banks. They're very critical in agroecological transitions to become self-sustainable in terms of helping those communities self-procure 30–40% of their seed needs. But that comes at a huge investment in terms of technical assistance and supporting specific communities. How do we scale that up? Understanding that there is local components that are fully local, cultural as well. What is at the meso level? What is at the sub-regional level in terms of learning where we can seek some economies of scale, so we don't talk about 50, 100 successful community seed banks, but we need thousands of those. And there is a lot of research that we're ready to do and work for in that direction. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much, Juan Lucas. I have so many follow-up questions, but I will refrain because we have to go on to the next discussion. But can we give a round of applause to our speakers for their insights? And may I now invite you to return to your seats. And I would now like to invite the next set of speakers on stage. And I am sure I am going to get some of their names wrong, so I apologize in advance. May I invite His Excellency Nyo Nyai, the Ambassador for Senegal, and who is also the chair of the Group of Friends of Agroecology. Here we have Miss Annette Schniegens, who is the UN section head for EU delegation in Rome. She's joining us online. And we also have Miss Lara Lobo, advisor to the Ambassador of Brazil here in Italy. And we also have His Excellency Zong Hai Hung, who is the Ambassador for Vietnam, who is unable to make it today, but sent a short video message that we will be sharing later. Now, before we start, we have another short video to watch. Can we get the video, please?
Our country is really committed to food systems transformation, to more resilient and inclusive and sustainable food systems. At national level, we really use the agroecological principles to increase policy coherence, but also to further develop our Swiss agriculture policy.
We start using the agroecology since many years. From the beginning, we focus on the conservation agriculture. We introduce the cover crop to the farmer in terms of reducing the soil erosion, and also we want them to improve the soil quality as well. Because agroecology is the positive response for the future.
Le Sénégal, dans son plan de développement, s'est articulé sur un document qui s'appelle le plan Sénégal émergent. Et dans ce plan, il y a un volet, le plan Sénégal émergent vert. Beaucoup de maires se sont réunis sous forme de réseau des communes et villes vertes du Sénégal, qui vraiment promeut des pratiques agroécologiques dans le cadre de tout ce qui est activité de développement. Sur le plan de la formation, il y a de nouvelles universités qui ont initié aussi des formations orientées agroécologie.
We have been developing different public policies. One of the important them is the National Strategy of Soils for Agriculture and Agrifood Production. On the other hand, we have been really worried about the nutrition of the soil. In that way, we are starting a program to train all the farmers in different scale to recover all the productivity and fertility of the soils. And the another one, of course, is pollinators.
So right now, we have progressively in terms of the conservation agriculture and agroecology. Several provinces already introduced the conservation agriculture and agroecology transition, and more than that, farmer, especially the community, they also can produce their own the cover crop seed.
Les financements sont là, mais ils ne sont pas bien articulés, ils ne sont pas bien. Il y a un travail de synergie des investissements pour que ça soit impactant.
I think one of the most important things to date is that we really also need agroecological indicators to measure progress.
We need to unify the vision. We need to unify the actions under integral strategy in a way that allows us in a public, private and social partnership to generate and transfer knowledge to all the farmers in different regions of the world to have better or stronger food systems, resilient, inclusive nutrition for population.
Thank you. So that video shows some of the country members of the coalition so far. There are 50 countries that have joined the Agroecology Coalition to date. Laos is the latest, and there are more in the pipeline. Now, to start the conversation, I'd like to first direct my question to His Excellency from Senegal, who is the chair of the group of Friends of Agroecology. Now, this informal group has been instrumental, right, in the establishment of the Agroecology Coalition itself. It's been 2 years now since the coalition has been established. Can you tell us how this group is going to continue supporting the agroecology agenda going forward?
Merci beaucoup. Donc, je voudrais peut-être, avant de parler du groupe des amis, préciser pourquoi le Sénégal a décidé de rejoindre le groupe. Le Sénégal, vous le savez, a été choisi en 2015 comme pays pilote pour l'agroécologie. Donc, la même année, Dakar a abrité le premier séminaire africain sur l'agroécologie et nous avons mis en place plusieurs initiatives gouvernementales, dont 2 grandes initiatives qu'on appelle le REVES, c'est-à-dire c'est le réseau des maires, donc qui est composé de plus de 30 communes qui promeuvent l'agroécologie. Nous avons également ce qu'on appelle la dynamique pour une transition agroécologique au Sénégal, le DITAES, qui est un réseau qui regroupe des organisations de producteurs, des consommateurs, des femmes rurales, des ONG, des institutions de recherche, la société civile, etc. Et je suis convaincu que tous les pays qui ont décidé de rejoindre le groupe des amis sont aussi engagés que le Sénégal. Donc, c'est pourquoi le groupe des amis est une grande force pour l'agenda de l'agroécologie. Nous venons de terminer aujourd'hui notre première réunion en présentiel et nous avons pris un ensemble d'engagements qui vont certainement nous permettre de promouvoir davantage l'agroécologie, d'abord au sein des 3 agences qui sont basées à Rome, la FAO, le FIDA et le PAM, mais également de partager des expériences, d'échanger entre nous pour que dans nos pays respectifs, l'agroécologie soit mieux promue, mieux connue et que dans l'avenir, les systèmes agricoles qui reposent sur l'agroécologie soient les systèmes préférentiels dans nos pays. Donc voilà quelques idées que j'avais à développer. Pour ne pas sortir des 3 minutes, je ne vois pas de timing pour savoir si je suis dans les 3 minutes, mais je pense que c'est l'essentiel. Merci.
Thank you so much. And, congratulations also on your first in-person meeting today. And so glad to hear that, you're moving the agenda forward. And again, we're going to be having a reception later. We can have further discussions around what the group of the Friends of Agroecology is doing and plans to do. I would now like to move from Africa to Asia, to Vietnam, which is one of the early country members, and where we're already seeing how efforts are being made to transition towards food system sustainability. So we have a short video message from His Excellency on some of the specific policies and initiatives that Vietnam is currently undertaking in this regard. Can we have the video, please?
I would like to express her honor to participate in this important roundtable. Vietnam strongly committed to agricultural restructuring and transformation of the food system towards sustainability, in which the role of agroecology is essential. Ecological agriculture is not new in Vietnam. Being one of the world's most vulnerable countries to climate change, we must adapt to the green agriculture, which is now an irreversible trend. Understanding that the agroecology and food system transition need multidisciplinary, multi-sector, and multi-level action and intervention, there has been more concrete and systematic strategy and policy on agroecology. First, the 13th Vietnamese Communist Party Congress set our vision toward sustainable development anchored on the 3 pillars of agroecological agriculture, vibrant rural and innovative farmers. Second, the government also issued a national action plan on responsible, sustainable, and transparent food system transformation, promoting sustainable food production at scale, contributing to the implementation of agroecology and reduction of greenhouse gas emission. Third, there have been policy documents promoting agroecological transition issued by the government and the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development with specific goals such as increase the use of organic fertilizer to 30%, increase the use of biological pesticide to 30%. Fourth, in conclusion, Vietnam is committed to green growth and ecological agriculture development. The government is working to align our policy priority with 13 HPLE principles. To this end, we stress on the need of innovation in international cooperation, particularly the importance of consultation, exchange of knowledge, as well as technical and financial support from experienced partners. Therefore, we strongly support the formation of the coalition, the timely launch of this strategy, and look forward to cooperation with all relevant partners in this collective effort. Thank you, and I wish you all good health and success.
We'd like to thank His Excellency for his remarks. We're now going to move from Asia back to Europe, and I think we have Annette online. Can we check that we have Annette online? Okay, great. Hi, Annette. Sorry you couldn't join us in person, but great to have you online. So Europe is, among the key supporter and funders of agroecology, particularly in the Global South. But Europe also has its own challenges when it comes to promoting agroecology in its own backyard. Could you tell us where you see the place of agroecology in Europe and how the European Commission is planning to support its implementation in the various countries as well?
Big questions. Thank you very much for having me here, and sorry to everybody for not being with you in person, and feel, you know, the excitement for the launch of the strategy. Also, thank you for really putting giving the attention to what our experience is in Europe in promoting agroecology and also the challenges. Let me start by saying that we have been in the EU promoting agroecology, including organic farming, since a long time ago. And so we have been embracing agroecological principles in research and policy and in practice. As you may know, the EU has in place a legislation for organic farming. And under the Common Agricultural Policy, we fund farmers for certain organic farming measures, agroecological practices, and farming systems such as agroforestry. In addition, under the Research and Innovation Programme Horizon Europe, the EU Commission has just started at the beginning of this year, together with member states, a new partnership. It's called, it's a long name. It's a partnership to promote agroecology. And this partnership is a major funding mechanism, I would say, to set up a network of living labs and research infrastructures in Europe and to some extent also beyond. These living labs are meant to become spaces for long-term, multi-stakeholder, real-life experimentation. And another focus is the promotion of science policy interfaces and science practice interfaces. With an expected budget of more than 300 million euro over the next 7 years, I think that this is probably the largest initiative globally to promote agroecology. So this is really a clear chance. Let me just also mention, before coming to the challenges, that we're also working very closely together with IFAD and FAO to promote agroecology in the various regions. And we have just heard from President Lario some of these initiatives. But so as you said, despite all these efforts, why is agroecology, why is also organic farming considered as a niche? As a niche for some kind of farmers in some markets. In the EU, only about 10% of the agricultural area is applying organic standards. And when it comes to agroecology, we have less definitive figures. So depending on the context, I think that there are many reasons why it's such a niche. And I would just like to highlight 3 ones that could probably also apply to other regions. Firstly, I think that we've seen that the conversion from conventional to organic farming or to agroecological practices takes time and effort. And during this period, farmers are facing many, many risks, in particular economic ones. So although we're talking about promoting the transition to sustainable practices, we're not funding this transition. We're financing an end product, but not how to get there. This is a major bottleneck, and we can see it very clearly in our policies. Secondly, agroecological farming practices are, I would say, knowledge intensive and more complex in terms of management requirements. You have diverse crops, really very diverse landscapes. And related to this, also the marketing of the products is more complex. So what I think we would need to do much better, that when we support agroecology, we think across the whole value chain. And I think that Corinna Hawkes alluded to this when she talked about systems approaches to agroecology. And thirdly, let me mention also the so-called citizen-consumer divide. We had a really nice work on this, where we found that most citizens all agree that we should produce and consume more sustainably. But as consumers, we have a preference for cheaper products. So the really big question is, how can we reward farmers for providing public goods while still being competitive on the markets? To me, this is one of the key issues we need to solve. So despite these drawbacks, in a sense, I think quite positive, because agroecology is clearly on the move. And mainly, if you see many of its elements, in agriculture, like the soil management, cover cropping, using pollinating flowers and so on. This is all becoming mainstream, even in conventional farming. And in Europe, we're seeing a new regeneration of young, enthusiastic, and very creative farmers that are adopting agroecological approaches. And I'm really hopeful that they will manage to lead the way and take the peers along so that in maybe short to medium term, sustainable agriculture really becomes the norm. With this, I think I've summarized my thoughts. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much for that, Annette. That was very clear and helpful. Let's come back to the room and to another continent, Latin America, this time to Brazil. So Lara, there's now a lot of attention in Brazil, partly because of the changes in the political landscape, but also because of the fact that Brazil is going to be chairing G20 and you're also going to be hosting COP30. And there's a lot of excitement and expectations around both of those. Could you tell us a little bit about some of the key innovations and programs that Brazil is implementing in terms of supporting agroecology, and also what can the world expect, you know, with Brazil as chair of both G20 and hosting COP30 in Milan next year when it comes to supporting agroecology?
Well, thank you very much. I think it's almost impossible to answer all those questions within 3 minutes, but I'll try my best. First of all, let me apologize. The ambassador was not able to come, so I am representing her here. I work in her team. I would like to, first of all, also congratulate Oliver and the whole team of the Secretariat and Madeleine for the launching of this strategy. I know it was a lot of work. I know the commitment you have put into this. So sincere gratitude and congratulations to you both. On behalf of whom I want to thank all the team. So coming back to Brazil, well, Brazil is known as one of the biggest producer of food, and we are also known as a sustainable tropical agricultural producer, right? But what many people don't know is that we are also one of the pioneers in terms of national policies for agroecology, right? So I want to share a little bit of this national policy. Back in 2012, Brazil launched by a national law, a national regulation, the National Policy for Agroecology and Organic Production. This was by then, more than 12 years ago now, recognized by FAO and received an award by FAO as one of, you know, the leading policies of agroecology. Last year, our president renewed this presidential decree and renewed the strategy, the national policy, with this making it even bigger and encompassing a lot of other programs. Carmen mentioned here the school meal programs. So the school meals programs, it is one of the national programs which is under the umbrella of this national policy for agroecology and organic production. And what is the innovative, you know, aspect of this national policy, if I can mention some? The innovative part is that we have two main bodies within the national policy. One of them is the National Commission for Agroecology and Organic Production. And this National Commission includes 21 government bodies and 21 civil society entities. So it's a multi-stakeholder commission, and that's where we listen to the demands of the civil society, right? And apart from that, we have an interministerial chamber, which is the other body. This interministerial chamber is composed of 14 federal agencies, and it's coordinated by the Ministry of Rural Development and Family Farming. Okay, so there are many things that I could talk about this policy, but one important that
that is part of the how we implement the policy is the National Plan for Agroecology. And just now, the many ministries have finalized the plan. It's about to be launched. It was supposed to be launched this week, but hopefully it will be launched next month. And it's a plan for 2024-2027. And it has many strategies amongst with, how to promote the agroecological transition, how to promote agroecological based production, how to incentivize social biodiversity, etc. Well, this is the behind the umbrella of the national plan. Apart from that, you asked about COP and G20. So let me say that this national plan and this national policy for agroecology are completely aligned with Brazil's NDCs 3.0 of reducing by 53.1%, the greenhouse gases emissions and achieving neutrality by 2050. And of course, within the strategy, agroecology is central to reach this. Well, to end, I want to say that at the G20, we are launching a global alliance against hunger and poverty. And the alliance is based on 3 pillars, which is, knowledge, financing, and policy implementation. In between the basket of policy that the alliance will implement and gather the finance resources, the knowledge, and the implementation at the national level, agroecology is amongst the policies that could be included within this basket. So when members would like to finance, something that is helpful for food security, for the environment, and the sustainability overall, agroecology could be included in between this basket. So with this, I close. Sorry, I was over a little bit of time, but too many questions.
Yes, I realized that I had a multi-part question and asked you to answer in a very short time. But again, this has been, fascinating to hear from everybody. But unfortunately, we now have to go to the final part of the event, and hopefully we can continue this discussion later on. I'd now like to invite the co-chair of Agroecology Coalition, Monica Yeto, for a short closing remarks. I understand she's joining us online. Monica?
Yes, can you hear me? Hello?
We can hear you.
Thank you so much. It is a beautiful day. Thank you very much for your presence today and for sharing this milestone of agroecology. To IFAD, our host organization today, thank you for welcoming us all. Thank you all the RBAs present today and for showing us your support, encouragement, advanced food system transformation by agroecology as a pathway. We hope that the conversation today will also be reflected in your own agenda. We particularly call all member states who are part of the coalition, both represented here and those who are not able to join us, to amplify our agenda within and beyond ministries and foster inclusive process by ensuring that non-state actors are able to participate meaningfully in your processes. We are particularly grateful that the group of Friends of Agroecology is actively engaging once again. Thank you. We also call to our non-state actor colleagues and allies, let's engage. Let's be proactive in interacting and collaborating with member states. We need to be working with them and holding them accountable as well. To the 300 member countries and organizations of Agroecology Coalition, congratulations to all of us. Our collective challenge is now to make sure that we are able to implement it. I know we have already started to carry out a number of these since last year. It is good to know that we have now made explicit these things in our strategy, as it also gives us a sense of where we want to go. To our friends who are not yet members of coalition, come and join us. The coalition needs everyone, all of us. It can only be effective if we are doing our part. Again, thank you for your participation. This is our collective journey towards food system transformation through agroecology. Let's lean into each other's strength and lift each other's up so that we reach our destination, leaving no one behind. Gracias. Asante sana from Kenya.
Thank you very much, Monica. And of course, thank you to everybody in this room and those who are joining us online for participating. A special thanks to IFAD for hosting this event and to our speakers, the first panel as well as the second panel, for their insights. And I would also like to thank our interpreters for doing such a fantastic job. Now, before ending this event, I'd like to extend an invitation on two things. One, to repeat what Monica has said earlier, the organizations and countries who are not yet members of the Agroecology Coalition to join the coalition, and for our in-person guests to join us at the cocktail reception after this event. Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Our food systems today face major challenges. They are responsible for 1/3 of global greenhouse gas emissions. Our food systems today face major challenges. They are responsible for 1/3 of global greenhouse gas emissions. They are degrading 1/3 of all soil on Earth.